So this afternoon we're doing a little session on print and cut. We have one of our machines up in the showroom of Hybrid Services, who are the main dealer for Mimaki, UK and Ireland. And they have a big range of printers, but that includes flatbed printers, which are a very good match for laser. Obviously, over the years, print equipment has got more and more versatile. For many years, it was a lot of sort of roll-fed print machines, but now they can print onto rigid substrates. And the traditional methods of cutting them don't necessarily fit the bill anymore. So we've been working a bit with Mimaki, and we've put some videos together and a bit of content to show you this afternoon.
And I'm sure also, I think, obviously, like you say, the great thing about having that Speedy 400 in there is the fact that, you know, if print and cut is obviously something that we can normally not only demo now in our showrooms here, but also in their showroom as well. So, yeah, it's great.
So let's make a start, shall we? Why not? Let's kick the afternoon off. So some of this we've done some of this in the past. So some of the slides, if you've been on with us from the start, some of the slides may be going over old ground. And I promise there's not loads and loads of slides. There's plenty of video content and some good music on the videos as well. But some of the slides may be going over old ground for some people watching. But we're going to do it anyway in case we've got some new viewers as well. So what is laser? So laser is essentially using a beam of light, or a very focused beam of light, to generate very high amounts of heat to cut through material, in a nutshell. So the graphic here, we're just showing that we can move a laser beam around the cabinet of a machine, and then we'll put it down through a lens, which focuses it to a very narrow point, generates huge amounts of heat, and vaporizes product away.
I can tell it's day 3, Brian, when you can't remember what a lens is.
It's been a stretch, hasn't it?
And so a little bit about the printing side. Of course, you can speak to our partners at Mimaki Hybrid for some really in-depth information on it. But essentially, what's changed is the fact that we now have the ability to cure the inks with UV, and not only that, but it's generated by LEDs. So that's a lot more reliable technology and a lot more consistent. Another thing that's interesting from my point of view in terms of what I'm learning about, other products that can work with the lasers, is the fact that these machines actually have a movable Z-axis, just like on one of our lasers. So that means you can put in, whereas before maybe it'd be a lot more limited, as Brian's already mentioned, in terms of the use and setup. Now what we can do is we can move that Z-axis to account for different product heights, and also allow for actually varying print heights as well, which is hopefully something that we'll be able to show you a little bit more later on.
So why combine these two technologies? Well, as I said a few minutes ago, we're looking at being able to make some of our products more interesting. What we don't have with laser engraving is color, and from a print perspective, what you can put down is as much color as you possibly want, and textures and all sorts of other interesting things. But what you can't then do is profile it out if you're using, well, with this particular model, with anything. So we're going to focus on products that we would commonly use over the next half an hour or so, which work beautifully with the print side, and also then work with the cut side, and we're going to turn it into real product.
So in terms of the point of sale on the laser processing side.
So yeah, our first sorry Alex, our first product we're going to do is a bit of point of sale. So predominantly what we would use laser for would be for hacking out bits of MDF, for slotting parts together, or for putting accessories onto point of sale, and for acrylic fabrication. And those things are absolutely fine on their own. They could be more interesting, and we're just looking to add that wow factor for your potential customers.
Yeah. And then, of course, we come back over to the print side. We're kind of almost the opposite. So obviously no fabrication really at all that's possible. And what we're having to deal with is pre-cut shapes and objects, and then obviously the personalization and the branding onto them. And obviously being able to add the very color specific branding, it really allows you to emphasize what the product is. And this technology, of having the printed surfaces, is something that obviously combined with the laser technology creates, a really interesting product. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play a little video where we've actually combined the two technologies. So we're looking at point of sale still, and what we're going to do is actually have some laser cut products that are then printed. And then we'll also, when you watch the video, you can also see hopefully that we also create a jig. So that's going to hold some of the actual objects which are then printed as well. So not only does the print help your laser products, but also having a laser, if you've already got a printer, it's very useful in terms of the jig production. One thing I would like to say is the audio on these videos for some reason plays very loudly. So I'm just going to give everyone a couple of seconds to reduce the audio, as otherwise it might come through quite loudly.
And all music choices are Alex's on this as well.
And if they're bad, then they're Bryan's. Okay, here is the first example of combining the technologies. Okay, so hopefully that's given you an idea of what really is possible by combining technologies. And the chances are, if you've ever visited, any mainstream retailers, obviously not possible at the moment, but there is a chance you've probably cut something that has been cut, Trotec laser, and then also been printed. So this is actually something that's used very widely throughout, pretty much all a lot of high street shops and a lot of big retailers that we actually work with as well. So if we have a look at the actual breakdown of what we created, we were printing onto 3mm clear acrylic, and we were reverse printing. And it's the same with engraving onto acrylic. Generally, when you're working with clear, it looks better if you reverse the engraving or the printing. So it just gives you a slightly nicer finish. The one thing is you do obviously have to remember to reverse print your registration points as well. We also then laser cut the foam insert. So this is the piece of foam that's holding the actual products themselves. And then, of course, we made the jig, which we then put back into the actual printer itself to actually align all of the phone cases, allowing those to be printed and created precisely. So it's a good combination of both of those. So if we take a quick look at some of the artwork, just to give you an idea of how it's working, and actually what I will do is I will now share across to the actual file itself, and we can have a quick look at this. So let me just bring this up so it's hopefully full screen, and I'll just quickly talk you through the graphics. So this top part here is just a base plate that the nothing interesting there. There's a rectangle that's been cut out. Here again we have the actual foam layer itself that's been cut. So again we're just cutting into the material nice and easily. And these 3 grey squares are actually used when we're doing the design of this stand, as these are actually just the height and the width of the phone cases themselves. So what that means is that we could bring that down onto the drawing and kind of visualize how much of the actual display stand we'll be able to see once we actually have the phone cases in place, and again for the sides. So in terms of your drawing setup, if you are looking to work with print and cut, I'll just quickly zoom in. The way the system works is it uses the camera that's built onto the system, and it's coming across and picking up these registration points. So when the laser's head scans around and picks up all these points, it's then going to know exactly how to align all of these cut paths, which allows us to do things like this. So you can see I've actually put the outline right around the outside. So this would be a 0 bleed cut path. So it means we're not actually compensating for any bleed of the actual print side itself, which shows just how accurate the system is. It also doesn't just align the cut paths, but it also allows for if there's any scaling. So if the printer prints it slightly bigger or smaller, also means that when we load the job itself, if you haven't put the sheet in perfectly square or right into a corner or a point, it's also going to position the job. So it's allowing for rotation, actually scaling the job, and the skew as well. So it allows for very good results. So once you actually have your job set up, one thing I would recommend as well is that we come across and we make sure that with the actual job itself, we set it into layers. So what you want to be able to do is, when we're obviously doing the print side, we're going to want to be able to turn off the cut layer and just send that to the Mimaki printer. And then of course, when we come back to work on the laser side, if we want to, we can then turn off the print side and just send that part of the artwork to the machine. So by working in layers, it makes all of that setup really nice and easy. So anything else you'd like to add to about that, Brian, or are you fairly happy?
No, that's comprehensive. Well, as comprehensive as we can do in a 40-minute session. But if anybody's got questions, please pop them in the chat. We'll be delighted to answer them. I think we're going to move on and show you another piece of product manufacture. Again, just trying to make it real life, really. So obviously, using a laser, we can produce signage. That's absolutely fine. Not a difficult thing to do. And the samples that we have up on screen now, a bit of engraving laminate. Very easy. Whip the top surface off to reveal the core color underneath. We can cut acrylic lettering. Again, very straightforward, and we can do a combination of the two, like the Casablanca sign on the right hand side. But that's quite a time heavy application, the Casablanca sign, because we're engraving some, we're laying letters over the top, and it's multiple different layers. And whilst it looks lovely, of course, it's quite time heavy.
Yeah. So if we then go into the UV printing side, again, we have the same kind of constraints that we had before. So we are limited by the fact that obviously we're not able to cut and process the material. And so that means we're again taking standardized blanks and standardized items and printing onto them. So again, you can still create really great effects, and obviously you can add the color, but of course you can't really allow, to have the full creativity on that side. One thing to note as well is with these the UV technology now, we can actually start to move the Z-axis and print some slight 3D effects. So that's very useful in creating textures, and especially for things like Braille. So again,
Just
yep.
a quick question that's come up, Alex. What's the maximum job size? I'm guessing that's a question about the printer that was used for the samples. And was that a 700 by 500?
Yep. Yeah.
So that was the size of print system from Mimaki that we used to make all those samples. Of course, we can do much bigger than that with our machines, but for flatbed print, that's where they are.
Yeah. So I do believe that there are, again, it's exactly the same like us, where you can have obviously the larger open flatbed systems, and again, that is also a possibility on the print side as well. So, it's really about matching those products together. So we're now going to again come to our second application, and this time we're going to be looking at working to make a sign by combining the technologies. So the things to look out for in this one is with the cutting on the laser, we're getting a flame polished edge on our acrylic, which again is removing a normal additional process and makes a really high quality looking product. And also we're actually printing direct onto wood. So I was really surprised when I spent some time at the hybrid facility at, just the amount of different materials you can print onto. But yeah, printing straight onto the wood, really easy and quick to do as well. And just a second warning again, just the video will play quite loudly. So I'm just going to give you a couple of seconds to turn down the volume before I start the video. Okay, here comes the second application of the print and cut, looking at signage. So hopefully again you enjoyed that little video clip, and it's given you a bit of an idea, maybe some ideas for other kind of projects that you can work with. So if we have a look at the final cut piece, you can see that we have the 3mm MDF as the backing, and there was nothing special that needed to be done to work with this material at all. So literally just straight onto the top. You can apply many different finishes with the printer, so you can actually add glosses, mattes, and other textures to your print. But in this case, we just went straight onto the MDF with no prep. The only thing we do with the material is we do just give it a little wipe down just to remove any dust from the surface, obviously because we want that ink to stick direct to the material. And then on top of that, we then applied the 8mm acrylic, which again was reverse printed, and just created a nice bit of three-dimensional depth to the actual process itself and give a nice result. And here again we can see the setup of the artwork. So very simple. These were all things that we came up with on the day, so it's a really easy process to set up between working with the printer and the actual laser itself.
Great job, and I think it's lovely to see the two different materials working in tandem there, and both so easy to process. So great job that one, Alex, and I really like the music on that one as well.
But I think that's the thing that I also found, interesting, is the fact that you can work with woods and other materials, which really, are easy to process on the laser as well. And I just didn't realise that was, so easy to do.
No, great job. It was a good couple of days spent, that, wasn't it? Okay, so the third area that we're going to look at, where we can combine the two processes, is sort of corporate gifting, that type of scenario. So as we know with a laser, and as we've seen with some of our earlier sessions, we can produce these cups and mugs, put lots of nice fine detail great engraving onto them, and pens and various other gifty type products. But again, we're always stuck with one additional color, and that color being whatever the color is underneath the paint, or coating of whatever sort it is, on the product that that we've just marked. So Alex will show some printed product.
Yep, so here again, it's quite interesting to see that actually the applications are very similar between the prints and obviously the laser side. One thing to note is on the center image here, we have actually a jig. So again, if you already have a printer and you're considering a laser, then obviously by going to a laser, it makes you able to quickly make these jigs to hold these products. And especially if you're doing more custom and bespoke work, you know, it's very quick to make your own jig up to hold certain items to make sure that that print is precisely located. Again, we can see that there is the ability to have rotary work with the print side as well, but it is very sensitive. It's even more sensitive than laser is to the kind of height variation of the product itself. So it's very critical that if you do work with cylindrical items, that they are perfectly flat when they're facing towards the actual print head themselves. So we thought we'd do something slightly different again for our combination, and in this time we're actually going to look at creating some corporate type packaging. So we're using some print onto just a standard card. So you'll see with the laser processing on this one that we are cutting the material, but we're also scoring the material. So typically this would be used for actual manufacturing, but it's reusable if you're doing prototype or low volume batch type work. It's very easy to do. So again, a little warning about the audio level, and we'll just come across and start the final video, which is looking at the corporate application of these two technologies. And there we go. That was the final combination of the technology. So hopefully that's given you a quick idea of the things that we did. And for this one, we cut and scored the cardboard packaging with the laser. We also cut out the little plastic top window to allow you obviously to see into the packaging. And then of course the little cake toppers were obviously printed onto just some standard white acrylic and then laser cut to complete the final piece of that.
No direct print onto the icing though.
No, unfortunately not. I think it'd be dangerous if you could print cakes easily.
Definitely would be for me.
So the final thing I thought we'd just quickly do is, I'll just be a second while I just ask my mouse over there. I'm just going to bring up the range of the machines just to show you which machines you can actually, let me just do this.
We've had a question in the meantime, Alex. While you're doing that,
Yep.
I know you love to multitask. So let's you fiddle with your computer, and I'll throw questions at you at the same time. And the question was from Scott saying, "What ink set are you using?" Oh, look at that! It's disappeared completely, just as I threw a question at him. To be honest with you, Scott, I'll try and answer that question for you. I wasn't there at the time. Oh, Alex, where are you? What are you doing?
But it turns out if you click on to load the page onto your actual screen, it will remove you from the stream.
Okay, brilliant. Well, it's good to learn something on the third afternoon of doing this, I suppose. So anyway, Scott's asked us what ink set was being used on the acrylic printing.
I'm not actually sure as to the actual set that they were using. I know obviously it's all proprietary inks to their systems, and they obviously, we are actually just using, I believe one of the comment they did make was it was just a standard set, so they were also interested to see from their side of obviously getting used to laser that when we laser through these inks, even directly onto them, we're not getting any flaking or any peeling or any removal of ink, which I know some of our print systems have experienced. Whereas with this, it was just whatever their standard setup was in the machine was what we were working with.
And we plan to do more experimentation up at their head office in Crewe, as and when we're allowed to do so. So they've got the machine, they can do experimenting, and they've got the Trotec machine as well. But we want to make some more videos and make some more products and things so that we can again help make good informed advice.
Yeah, but of course, if you want to contact us at our inquiries email address, then obviously we can pass that on and speak to Mimaki and give you some more detailed information.
So what are you doing now?
So the final thing is just to say, with the camera and vision system, it essentially starts from our Speedy 300 series up. So if you already have a Speedy 300, it is possible to retrofit it to it, but we actually do just have a brand new Speedy 100 or 300 that's been released. So if you are thinking maybe it's time to consider other technology like fiber or actually another machine, then we do have a new generation Speedy 100 and 300, which will obviously has the OptiMotion and really will be able to take advantage of the camera system. And again, the 360 up, so the 360 you can obviously have vision and also on the 400. And of course, our large format machines, which are used, predominantly, especially we have quite a few customers in the point of sale industry who do a large amount of print and cut.
Yeah, generally with the large format, sort of 2000, 3000, the big boys.
So hopefully that was interesting. If there are any more questions, then please do ask. And
please hit us with some questions because we finished 10 minutes early. So,
well, we've done very well today then.
if you don't ask any questions, you'll have 10 minutes of Alex and me just rabbiting on screen. So please hit us with some questions.
Yes.
Otherwise we'll be on to weather and all sorts. Is there anything else in terms of setup? You could quickly run us through how it works in job control.
Yeah, let me just have a quick look and I will bring some information up.
Have you got JCV on that laptop?
Not on this 300s, but we can actually be able to have a look at some of the actual setup side. I mean, what we can do is if we have a look actually about the graphic setup that I did on this drawing, then hopefully we can maybe give a few little tips for working with the setup. So let me just bring across the screen again. And we'll have a little look at the artwork. So of course you can work with this functionality with all of your different graphic softwares and graphic packaging. But what we want to consider is just the ability to create things like the outlines. So generally you will need ideally some kind of vector format. So by that I mean when you typically have a photo or an image, all you will have is just an actual rectangle job and a rectangle data. Whereas obviously when we want to really take advantage of this process, we want to create some vector outlines to the actual job itself. So here you can see we have the two components of this drawing. Just find out where the mouse has gone. And what we can do is if you take multiple objects and we align them up, then generally what I use to create the actual final artwork is I'll use a contouring function. So you select the multiple objects and then you can create a boundary. Of course, you can manually draw the lines around as well, but I find this is a really great way of creating a really precise cut around the edge of the actual artwork itself. So if we click on those two there, and you can now see we have our boundary. Of course, there is some extra data on here that we will need to tidy up. So if we come across into the drawing, then this is where you'll then need to start going down to a node level and to remove some, obviously, of these extra nodes. But overall, it's a very quick and efficient way to create nice detailed objects around the actual graphic and artwork itself.
Okay, so we've got some questions arise because we've obviously been boring enough, which is good. So can the Q series use a camera to read printout? The answer is not yet, but it's very much in the plan for the Q series. Last I heard, we were hoping that it would be end of Q2. So by the middle of the year, we should be able to do that. But keep in touch, and then we'll keep you up to date with how that process is going. Lothian, as our off topic, can you use toner powder to add colours to engravings? Have you ever tried that, Alex?
No, it's not actually something I've ever tried. I'd be interested to, obviously, if you do ever test it, to know the results. But generally, obviously, it tends to be paints and inks tend to be the main things that I've come across. So I'm not sure how you'd actually end up, kind of combining those to transfer the colour.
No, again, not something I've seen over the years either. But if you try it and it works, I'd love to hear about it. That's for sure. Because any new techniques are always interesting for us to hear about. MJB has said, "Can you give me some ballpark pricing for your machines?" Yes, but at the minute, without knowing a bit more about what you would like to do, whether or not you are in this country as well, because pricing varies to do with shipping and things like that all across the world. So what we would do is we'd normally talk to you about your application, look at what accessories you require, extraction, all those types of things, and then put something together properly for you. So best thing to do is drop us an email at inquiries@troteclaser.co.uk. Speak to somebody, 5 minutes, and we can give you some ballpark pricing based on the things that you actually want to do. Okay, your closest competitor can use a camera system to get live sheet views for placing artwork. Are there any plans to bring in such a system? Well, it's difficult to say for absolute certain, Phil. There's all sorts going on in R&D within the business, and there's a huge amount of money gets spent on R&D every year trying to bring in the next best feature. So I certainly wouldn't rule it out. In reality, whilst it's a nice feature, it's no more functional really than the point and shoot that we have anyway with the red dot pointer. And we also know that the camera system that I think I know which one you're talking about doesn't do such a good job when it comes to accuracy for print and cut. So I'm not going to promise anything, but I also wouldn't be surprised if something similar came in.
Yep. And as a final little thing, I've got the actual camera system itself. So this is the part that obviously goes onto the laser head. In fact, let me just bring this up and we can just have a quick talk about it. So anyone who does already have job control vision, just a couple of little setup tips. One thing is just remember that this window under here is very easily removed with this little attachment. So the idea behind that is that only dust, dirt and debris sits on this little acrylic window rather than actually onto the camera lens itself. So obviously you need to make sure that that's obviously cleaned. I generally will remove this from the machine, so it's just 2 thumb screws. Take it off the machine when you're doing your basic cutting. And the next thing to do is to make sure that you actually calibrate the camera. So quite a few people don't realize that you can actually adjust the focus height of the camera itself to the material. So for example, if you're always using a 2-inch lens and then you decide you're going to do some print and cut with some thicker material, then you need to make sure that the lens is set up for the correct distance between the actual head of the machine and the bed itself. So you just undo the little focusing ring and you can adjust this. And the great benefit about this is it's really quick and easy to adjust and set up. And also we have our own actual calibration file that you run when you set up your camera. So you're not relying on any just base factory presets. Everything is calibrated to the actual machine itself.
And we recommend fairly regular calibration anyway, don't we? Because stuff does get dirty. And it's the lens protector at the bottom. You actually get a packet of those with Job Control Vision anyway. And I think some are frosted and some are not, for better use with different materials. Is that all right, Alex? I'm sure
Yes.
that's right.
So it can also depend a little bit on the light in the room that you're in. So if you're in a very well lit and a very bright area, then sometimes you actually don't want all of that light coming back onto the actual camera because it can create a little bit of confusion. But again, it's fairly easy to set up, and these all have a built-in LED lights into the bottom anyway. So you tend to be able to just rely on the main source with the actual machine itself.
And Phyllis said, wasn't so much for print and cut, more for personalizing weird shaped products. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Absolutely, Phil. It would be quite a useful thing to have. So watch this space is all I would say. And keep speaking to Chris. I'm sure you're in Chris's area. Keep speaking to Chris, and he'll let you know as soon as more functionality is available. So if there's any more questions, we are coming right to the end now. Just check
This
them
is
all.
your 2-minute warning, Mr. Jada.
2 minutes. Okay. Okay, we've got one more question from Paul. There we go. What's Paul asking? Is there a more streamlined way of working from CAD files? Currently, layers in CAD are set to colors to cut and etch, which is a low-powered cut vector rather than raster. And then convert to WMF, export to Coral, and then resize in Coral, then print from Job Control. Any slicker workflow, please?
I think the main thing is just to have a look, obviously, at what CAD software you're using. Generally, you should be able to at least export an SVG or maybe even a DXF or a PDF. SVGs tend to work quite nicely as well. And then obviously, if you've got that file direct from your CAD package, then again, you can just straight drag and drop that into Ruby, or we could potentially look at using UniDrive as a separate add-on, which again could send it straight across to you into Job Control, so you don't have to go into Coral.
But Paul, if you drop us an email, inquiries@troteclaser.co.uk, we can actually do a one-to-one session with you, and we'll have a look at your workflow and see if we can make it easier for you. Probably easier in that format rather than this. So we've got good afternoon from JPS Online. So JPS Online will be joining us a little later in the last session of the day, and
about 40 minutes time.
And apparently Chris keeps trying to make Phil's wallet lighter initially, but then much heavier afterwards. Phil,
good pitch.
bro. Okay.